In the royal chapel, the candles flicker. It's All Saints' Day morning, and thousands of people are kneeling in prayer in Lisbon's churches. The devout fill every pew. At 9:40, the ground starts to shake. Not a tremor, but a violent lunge to the side that sends people to the floor. Pendulums make chandeliers swing. The rumbling gets louder and louder. Columns made of stone break. The churches start to fall apart with a noise like the world splitting open. In 90 seconds, the richest city in Europe will be gone. Welcome to Arthur's living history. What happens when the worst natural disaster in European history hits on the holiest day of the year and makes people think differently about God, science and suffering? Let me explain. Imagine Lisbon on the morning of November 1st, 1755. The Portuguese capital shines white and gold in the fall sun. It is a city of 400,000 people spread out over 7 hills that look out over the Tagus River. This isn't just any European city, it's the center of a world empire. Every day, ships from Brazil bring gold and diamonds to Portugal. The warehouses are full of African ivory. The trading houses along the riverfront smell like Indian spices. The royal palace has 300 rooms, and its library has 70,000 books, making it one of the best collections on earth. The Lisbon Opera House is as good as anything in Italy. The beautiful dome of the patriarchal church stands out against the skyline. Portugal's wealth and power are on display in wide new plazas, while narrow medieval streets wind between whitewashed houses with unique red tiles on top. King José I lives in a lavish palace and rules over an empire that stretches across 4 continents. His prime minister, Sebastião José de Carvalho, who later became known as the Marquis of Pombal, runs the empire. Foreign diplomats say that Lisbon is the most beautiful city in Europe. Merchants say that its business district is better than Amsterdam's. But the 1st of November isn't a business day. All Saints' Day is a holy day in all of Catholic Europe, but the Portuguese celebrate it with extra devotion. Families flock to churches for special masses by dawn. There are too many people in every cathedral, chapel and monastery. Thousands of candles light up altars that honor saints and loved ones who have died. The smell of incense wafts through the streets paved with stones. Even the port is quiet as sailors and dock workers join the prayer pilgrimage. Nobles in silk and velvet kneel in front of golden altarpieces at the royal chapel. At São Domingos Church, the nave is full of common people standing shoulder to shoulder. Nuns sing hymns in Latin in convents that are spread out over the hills. The city has never been more crowded, more likely to catch fire, or more open to attack. And 60 miles southwest of the Atlantic floor, huge tectonic forces have been building for hundreds of years. 9:30 goes by without a sound. The sun rises higher. Priests hold up communion cups. At about 9:40 in the morning, the earth moves. It starts out almost gently, with a sideways sway that makes people stop praying. Is someone moving the seats? But the movement gets stronger. The ground shakes violently and suddenly with a lot of force. The first shockwave hits Lisbon like a punch. Buildings move, tiles from the roof fall into the streets. People scream in crowded churches as they trip and fall. The shaking goes on for 30, 40 or 50 seconds without stopping. Sounds like gunshots make the walls crack. Chandeliers fall down. In the narrow streets of the Middle Ages, houses built wall to wall start to fall apart. Then there is a short break, maybe 15 seconds of eerie silence, broken only by falling debris and screams in the distance. People run toward doorways, open spaces, and any other place that might be safe. The second shock is worse than the first. The ground doesn't just shake this time, it ripples like water. Later, witnesses said they saw the cobblestones move in waves. The stone foundations of churches and palaces, which were meant to last for hundreds of years, are just falling apart. The beautiful patriarchal church falls in on itself, and its huge dome falls on hundreds of people who are praying. A lot of people are celebrating in São Domingos in the morning, and it comes crashing down in a pile of stone and wood. In every part of the city, the same thing happens. Churches that were built to last become graves. The São Paulo Cathedral, the Santa Catarina Church, and the São Vicente Monastery, buildings that had been there for hundreds of years, disappear in minutes. The royal palace starts to fall apart, with its 300 rooms folding up like paper. The opera house, which had just been finished a few months ago at a huge cost, falls down completely. The old synagogue in the Jewish quarter is falling apart. Along the waterfront, warehouses full of colonial treasure tilt and fall into the Tagus. But the earthquake has an even worse effect. Thousands of people who got away from the falling buildings run toward the wide open spaces near the river, like the huge commercial square, the marble waterfront, or anywhere else that isn't falling down. They crowd onto the new stone quay, thinking they are safe on solid ground with the sky above them. Some people drag hurt family members, others hold on to things they found. Mothers protect their kids. The elderly have a hard time keeping up. Something amazing is happening at the mouth of the Tagus. The violent movement of the seabed has moved billions of gallons of water. The first people to notice it are the ships that are anchored in the harbour. The water level drops quickly and dramatically, revealing seabed that hasn't seen sunlight in thousands of years. Fish that are stuck on dry ground flop around. The hulls of ships settle into the mud. Sailors are confused by this sight that can't be real. Then someone sees it. A dark line appears on the horizon far out to sea, where the Tagus meets the Atlantic. As it gets closer, it gets taller, and it's going quickly. A horse running at full speed would be able to keep up with the tsunami. 3 walls of water, each 40 feet high, not just one wave. People who survived on the waterfront have about 90 seconds to get ready. Some people run. Most of them freeze in fear. The first wave hits the stone quay with the force of 1,000 battering rams. The water rushes inland for blocks, taking with it everything in its path, including people, animals, carriages, and debris from buildings that have fallen down. It floods the lower city, filling cellars and ground floors and drowning people who tried to escape falling bricks. When it goes away, it pulls thousands of people back toward the sea. The second wave comes a few minutes later and goes even farther inland. The third finishes the destruction, turning the once thriving waterfront into a scene of floating wreckage and bodies. But Lisbon's troubles aren't over yet. The earthquake happened during morning mass, when every house had candles lit for the holy day. Cooking fires made breakfast. There were hundreds of votive candles burning in churches. When buildings fell down, the flames found the perfect kindling in broken wood, smashed furniture, and spilled oil. Small fires joined together to make bigger ones. The wind, which gets stronger as the day goes on, fans the flames. By noon, there are several huge fires burning in the ruined city. The fire spreads through the mess of debris where streets used to be. People who survived the earthquake and flood are now running away from walls of fire that are getting closer. The fire doesn't care who it hurts. It burns down the royal palace, destroying the 70,000-volume library and centuries of royal and maritime records. It turns the customs house and records of Portugal's global trade network into ashes. The fire lasts for 6 days. About 85% of Lisbon's buildings are gone when it finally runs out of fuel. 35 of the city's 40 parishes have been completely destroyed. All of the big churches are in ruins. The waterfront commercial district, which was the Portuguese Empire's main source of income, is now just burned down rubble. Conservative estimates say that 30,000 people died. Some historians think that the real number was more than 60,000. The shockwaves, both real and figurative, went far beyond Portugal. People in France, North Africa, and Spain all felt the earthquake. The tsunami hit the coast of Portugal with terrible force, destroying whole fishing villages. It crossed the Atlantic and hurt people in Brazil and the Caribbean. But the philosophical shockwaves were even stronger. This wasn't a small disaster in a faraway country. Lisbon was a big European capital, rich and cultured, where diplomats and merchants from all over the world lived. The disaster happened on All Saints' Day, when the most religious people were doing their most sacred things. Many people who stayed home lived, but many who went to church died. The theological consequences were unavoidable and profoundly disturbing. Why would a good God destroy a Christian city on a holy day and attack people who were praying? European intellectuals were very interested in the question. The French philosopher Voltaire wrote a famous poem about the Lisbon disaster that questioned divine providence. Jean-Jacques Rousseau answered by saying that people made bad choices like building cities with tall buildings instead of blaming God. The disaster led to discussions about theodicy, natural evil, and God's role in human affairs that are still going on today. But in Lisbon, there wasn't time for philosophy. King José, who had been lucky enough to leave the palace before the earthquake hit, was now in charge of ruins. The city was about to run out of food, get sick, and fall apart socially. There were bodies all over the place. People who lived through it were in shock. Thieves stole from the wreckage. The whole government had been destroyed. One man stepped forward with clear and ruthless efficiency. Sebastião José de Carvalho, the king's minister, took charge right away. Pombal did something while others talked and gave up. He is said to have told the king, "We must bury the dead and take care of the living." Within hours, he had put together the response that would keep Lisbon from falling apart completely. To stop the spread of disease, Pombal ordered mass graves. He sent troops to keep the peace and stop looting, and he executed looters in public to scare others away. He set up a system for distributing food to keep people from starving. He took control of ships in the harbor to bring supplies from areas that weren't affected. Most impressively, he started making plans for the city's rebuilding before the fires had even gone out. But Pombal did something else that had never been done before. He sent questionnaires to every parish in Portugal and asked them a lot of questions about the earthquake, such as when it happened, how long it lasted, what happened to the water level, and how the buildings were damaged. He wanted information. The systematic gathering of data may have made the Lisbon earthquake the first natural disaster to be studied in a scientific way. The answers helped to create modern seismology. Pombal's best work was the rebuilding of Lisbon. He said no to plans to rebuild the medieval city. Instead, he hired someone to come up with a brand new city design, which was one of the first examples of systematic urban planning in Europe. The new Lisbon would have wide streets arranged in a grid, which would make it impossible for fire to jump across. Pombaline architecture would be used to build the buildings. This style uses wooden frames inside masonry walls that are meant to bend during earthquakes instead of falling down. The Baixa, which is the lower city, was rebuilt to very strict standards. All of the buildings were the same height and style. The squares were very well proportioned. From the start, there were plans for sewers and other infrastructure, not just random additions over the years. The commercial square, which was rebuilt facing the Tagus, is now one of the most beautiful public spaces in Europe. It took decades to rebuild, and it changed Portugal's economy. The cost was huge. Portugal never fully regained its wealth from before the earthquake. The disaster sped up the empire's slow fall. Brazil started on the road to independence when it saw that Portugal was weak. Other European countries, especially Britain, had more say in Portuguese affairs. But out of disaster came progress that no one saw coming. The Pombaline reforms made Portugal's government more modern and less powerful for the church and nobility. The new Lisbon set an example for how to plan cities all over Europe. The scientific investigation of the earthquake enhanced human comprehension of geological forces. The philosophical arguments it started helped people in the Enlightenment think about reason, nature, and God's plan. Pombal's mark is still on modern Lisbon today. The Baixa area still has its grid from the 18th century. A huge statue of the Marquis looks down on the city he rebuilt. Seismologists look at the earthquake that happened in 1755 as a classic example of megathrust events. Many books and philosophical works talk about the disaster. Voltaire's poem is still in print. The event is a turning point, maybe the point at which European civilization started to use reason and science to understand natural disasters instead of just seeing them as punishment from God. Lisbon remembers every November 1st. There are plaques where churches used to be. The earthquake changed Portuguese culture and the way people saw their country. The disaster showed that no city, no matter how rich or powerful, can escape the power of nature. It showed that people can bounce back from even the worst disasters with careful planning and hard work. And it showed that the questions that suffering and disaster bring up, questions about meaning, providence, and human responsibility, are still important today, just like they were on that awful morning in 1755. There were no scales for 200 years after the Lisbon earthquake, but it was between 8.5 and 9.0 on those scales. Modern seismologists think it let out energy equal to that of thousands of nuclear bombs. The fault line that caused it, which is the line between the African and Eurasian tectonic plates, is still active today. There will be another big earthquake in the area. The only thing that matters is when. But if disaster strikes again, it will find a city that has changed because of what happened in 1755. Building codes take into account seismic forces. Emergency response systems are ready to go. Scientific monitoring gives us a heads up. The ruins of churches that were destroyed on All Saints' Day remind people in modern Lisbon to get ready, make plans, and build with nature's power in mind. Portugal built a new capital out of the ashes of disaster. Europe built new ways of thinking from the ruins of things that used to be certain. People learned to study disasters instead of just going through them after that traumatic morning in November. The Lisbon earthquake wrecked a city, but it also laid the groundwork for modern disaster science, city planning, and philosophical studies of human suffering. The beautiful city that died on November 1st, 1755, can only be seen in paintings and memories now, but the city that rose from its ruins is proof of human willpower. It shows that even when the ground itself lets us down, we can rebuild, rethink, and rise again. So, there you have it. The morning Europe's richest city disappeared, and what came up from the rubble. If you liked this trip through history, sign up for Arthur's Living History and ring the bell so you don't miss the next story. I'm Arthur. What historical event should I bring to life next? Please tell me in the comments.